Alright, and today we're talking about the rigged democracy that is America, guys.
Yay!
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 Oh, here it's sad.
Here it is.
I don't think it's a rigged democracy. I mean, I could. We'll get into the arguments. I'll see what you got to say first.
Okay, so if you didn't know, we got downgraded from a full democracy recently to a flawed democracy.
By who?
It's like the UN. It's a council on the UN. They basically rate like the status of the current world's democracies, and we are a flawed democracy.
I wonder, like, in what the criteria is.
Well,
is it because of January 6th? Or?
Well, yeah.
That has probably
Okay, then.
something to do
Like-
with it.
So I guess to start this off, I guess it's more of a question on like the system that was chosen for our country. So, Socrates and Alexander Hamilton have a similar view on democracy. Sorry, it's not Alexander Hamilton. It's dang it, what is his name? James Madison. And so in order, Socrates' whole point about democracy was in order for it to work, it has to be a body of equals. It's the only way
Okay.
you're going to have, because otherwise you're going to have the groups organize in their own interest over other groups. You see what I'm saying?
So then it becomes like a parliamentary system where you get like a 32% majority who is effectively...
Yeah. So like even then, I think what he's getting at here is that like even if you have a group of people that are, the minority who have Socrates' biggest thing was money. It's like and power. If they have all the money and the power, and the rest of the country has so few, it's not going to be long before the many use their little power that they do have to take away from the rich. And James Madison agreed with this problem. That is kind of the flaw in democracy, is that people at the end of the day are going to serve their own interest over the interest of
A collective.
the collective. And the only way that they disagreed was how do they deal with that. So they agreed on the problem, but they disagreed on the solution. So Socrates' solution was to fix the inequalities. James Madison's solution was to fix the democracy. So that way you can't, like, the power struggle that would have to take place is a lot harder to do. So, like, if you look at, like, who originally could vote, do we count voting as, like a right?
Voting in the modern era, well, I think voting
Like, I mean,
throughout
like,
history.
as sacred as, like, the First Amendment.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I mean, every American has the right to a single vote in a federal election.
Okay, see? Our founders disagreed. At first, it was white property owners.
Right.
White male property owners.
Yes.
Women actually couldn't own property at all at this time.
Well, unless they were widowed.
Yeah. And even then, you couldn't do much with it. Like, you couldn't make a whole bunch of... Like, women couldn't be a part of deals or anything like that. So, it was rigged kind of from the start against... To kind of stack up all the cards on the side of the people who had the power as soon as we took it from England.
That's fair.
And
would you argue with that at all?
No. I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of hard to, because
Well-
pretty much everyone knows women didn't get suffrage until...
Like, after World
yeah,
War
it was-
1920.
White women got it in 1920. Everyone else got it in, like, the 30s, 40s, 50s. 60s.
Yeah, with the Voting Rights Act.
The Founding Fathers really just wanted the...
Now, so, hang on,
class to vote.
I don't know that they intended for it to be the upper class. Now, effectively, it was the upper class. But I think the idea behind it was people who owned land in America had the right to say how it was governed.
They really wanted, like, intelligent people to vote.
Yeah, so a bunch of people...
Well, I think it was more stakeholders. Like, you own land here, so you have a stake in how this government is run.
Well, if you're a citizen, you have a stake.
They may have not seen it like that.
Okay. Maybe.
I'm conceding your point is effectively what happened. They consolidated the voting rights power in the hand of the people who had power already. But the intent, I believe, was the people who had stake in how the government was run.
Okay, so maybe. But we know at least for sure some of them thought that common people were too dumb.
So it an intelligence factor.
Yeah.
Well, and we all have to, literacy rates were pretty low, even among white people.
Right.
Especially in the South. Like...
Well, I mean, everywhere.
Everywhere, but I'm saying, like, when you grow up in a rural southern community in,
You grew up on a
1780, like...
Right.
Like, your job was to help on the farm, not go to school.
Right. You didn't need math.
Yeah, unless your family was really rich, you didn't go to school.
Well, there wasn't even really public education at this point.
Right.
You had to seek out education.
Yeah.
Which most people couldn't afford.
Well, I don't think that was the case back then. I think education is even like...
Getting in was kind of the problem, too. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't just take anyone at Harvard back then.
Right.
You know?
I mean, they don't now.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're a minority. Then they'll pretty much take you no matter what.
You gotta have, the ins with, like, either the family or... You gotta kind of have some sort of aristocratic type
background.
thing.
Yeah, it's a bit like knights in Europe.
Yeah.
Medieval Europe.
But, we have since made gradual attempts to kind of make it more of a democracy, but that has always come at the expense of, either abuses in other powers in the Constitution or just straight up ignoring some of the votes. You know what I mean?
So I understand abuses of power in the Constitution. Like, do you have examples of when these...
Well, so like the filibuster. So like the filibuster was never intended to stop a bill from passing. It was meant to continue debate. But it has since been used as a weapon to kill bills, which is what it was never intended to be used for. So,
I don't know. It's kind of hard to... I would like to gauge your opinion on the filibuster prior to Donald Trump being in office, because a lot of the people who are up in arms about the filibuster right now, when Donald Trump had the majority in Congress in 2016, they were defending it. Like, they just... I can't remember who... I think it was a Daily Wire podcast, but they came on and they said... Like, they played a circa 2017 video of Chuck Schumer saying that the filibuster is an absolute right of the Senate. They're trying to silence our voices by getting rid of it. They're trying to this, that, and the other. And now, of course, if you watch Chuck Schumer, he's, avidly... And I'm not accusing you of the same flip-floppiness.
And I get that. And I get that.
The filibuster is meant for the party without the votes to at least have some sort of voice in the Senate.
Right, because it's not impossible to get past a filibuster.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
It's never... Okay, so, I think the percentages of getting past a filibuster are literally zero.
Well, it's the same thing as getting a new amendment.
I don't think a filibuster has ever been passed in our lifetime. Like, either they knew it was going to pass, or they did it through reconciliation. Like, I don't think that they've ever...
No, it's...
Like, in 20 years done this.
Are we going to cover the filibuster later, or should we go ahead and stick on it and talk it through right now?
Well, we can. My whole role is, if you read James Madison's role about why the Senate was put there, it was not to defend the small states, like New Jersey, and...
But James Madison was also not the only founding father.
He's the one that wrote the structure.
Put it to paper?
They call him the father of the Constitution.
It's not just his ideas that went into the Constitution.
These are.
So this is exclusively James Madison's brainchild.
Yeah. You look at the role... that was the role of the Senate, was to kind of rig the democracy in a way that favored the few over the many.
Okay.
So, in other words... it's a lot harder to buy all the representatives, because there are so many of them. And for the most part, they are held more accountable to their voters than the senators. So if you're a senator...
that's true, because a senator is statewide, and a House representative is a district within each state.
And if you're a senator, your chances of holding your seat are significantly higher. than if you were a representative.
Well, I mean, so if you so Nancy Pelosi is a Democrat from California, and then who's the one from Oklahoma?
No, we got Tom Cole.
No, it's not. It's not Tom Cole. It's Ingram.
Talking about a senator or representative? Senator Langford, and
it's Langford that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Thank you. But you figure, so, like, because it's statewide, each state only elects 2 senators to represent the whole state.
Right.
A Republican senator has virtually 100% chance of winning the election.
Right.
For Senate. And the same thing goes for Nancy Pelosi or AOC. You know, AOC is a House representative, but, a Democrat representative for California, regardless where they're from, because they have a D next to their name, are probably going to win the Senate election.
Right, yeah. No, I agree. And that's kind of the problem, because when you get these people that are in politics forever, for their lives, and we're not going to get term limits, that's another part of the system that kind of ruins the democracy. Yeah, we need, there's got to, I've advocated for a convention of states to, like, actually add term limits to the Constitution, because congressmen aren't going to do it. But a convention of states has literally never happened. Well, I mean, for the most part, it would be a detriment to the state's power, because you're giving a power to the federal government that they hadn't once had. See what I mean?
By limiting their term limits?
Well,
by limiting their terms?
Regardless of what you do. Like, if you pull that card, you pull that card. You know what I mean?
You want to say, I don't think it concedes to the federal government. I mean, a convention of states is the states get together, and then if you got a 2/3 majority, that gets added to the Constitution, period.
The problem is,
but I'm saying a state governor would never want to add anything to the federal Constitution, because that becomes the supreme law of the land over their own state constitution.
Because when does the government?
So it would supersede their own power.
Because
regardless of what
have
it
term
is.
limits?
Yeah, a bunch of them.
The executives have term limits. It's Supreme Court, federal court judges, Supreme Court judges, obviously, and House and Senate members.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Everywhere else has term limits except those people.
Well, the people who have term limits are in the minority. The executive branch has term limits, and that's it, of the 3 branches. But it's just something that no one ever votes to get rid of some of their power. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The only reason the executive branch has term limits is because the
they didn't want a
legislative
king.
branch also
there weren't term limits until FDR. Everyone just took a Washington step of you serve 2 terms and you're done.
Well, that's true.
There was nothing saying until FDR came around.
You know, that's actually an interesting point there, is the legislative imposed term limits on the executive, but didn't feel the need to impose it on itself.
Right.
Hey, we can't have the same guy in here for 16 years, but I'll be here for 40.
You know what baffles me?
A lot of things.
No, most of these congressmen, they went to school when it was still segregated. We've only had one president in history that went to a desegregated school.
You sent that to our text group.
Just think about that. How old these people are.
Yeah, you should probably put an age limit on there, but that's not so much to do with the democracy part of it. I guess I'm going to go ahead and, especially for the judges. Like, we need to have a real talk about whether or not judges should serve for life. Like, that's ridiculous.
So I understand the purpose behind it. Like, it's so you're not worried about your job. Like, your job is to interpret the Constitution, and once you get nominated, you don't have to worry about someone changing their mind and being like, no, we don't want this.
No, because you're not running for the office. You would just be like, it'd be like a 5, 4, 6 year contract. Like, hey, you guys, you have 4 years as a Supreme Court, or 10, or whatever, and then you're done. Doesn't matter what age you come in. You get 10 years, you're done. I mean, that would still take care of what you're worried about, right?
And then you get fresh brains.
You can't fire them.
So my worry would be that if we get rid of term limits like this, let's just say, it's 4 years, then even if you alternate with the executive, then because the executive has the ability to appoint judges, you're just going to get a president who in the middle of his term suddenly packs the Supreme Court with whoever he wants. And then you're stuck with that for 4 years. And then, so you're effectively going to neutralize 2 years of congressional or...
Say that again? I'm a little confused on
So let's say, let's say there's no term limits, that each new president gets to name his own Supreme Court. Right? And I don't know that that's what you're advocating for.
It's not.
Okay, so go ahead and tell me what you're advocating for so I can tell you my fears about that in particular.
Okay. So, for a Supreme Court judge, let's say we add you in 2020,
Okay.
right?
You've
You've got until 2030, and then you are kicked off alive or dead. Alright? And then in 2030, your seat comes up, and then we fill that seat for another 10 years.
Okay, now
Or
can
earlier.
you, because Supreme Court justices can resign.
Well, they can do that now.
Right. That's what I was saying. But can they be fired for any reason between hiring and the 10-year limit?
Well, probably not.
You're under
Okay.
you're under contract.
No, none of that. Probably not.
Well,
Can
if
they?
they murder somebody, what are you going to do? Not throw them in jail?
Okay, that's fine. Barring some felony crime,
I think you
Okay,
served the full contract.
I'm
it would
arguing
be the
for-
same. It would be the same contractual
You
agreement we have
understand
the
I'm
Supreme
arguing
Court,
for
just with a
term
limit.
limits. You understand I'm arguing for term limits, but just for the Supreme Court also.
Okay. So if we're going to say are we going to stagger that the way it is now? Or is like anyone who's served more than 10 years suddenly going to get grandfathered out? Like, okay, so these people who have served more than 10 years, you're up. Your seats are up now suddenly. Like, so
we could restart the clock.
But then all 9 seats come open at the same time.
Well, they're probably not. They probably will die at some point. I mean, we could stagger them, but term limit's got to happen somehow. I mean, you're going to run into the same problem with congressmen.
Yeah, I'm just a lot more comfortable kicking Congress. Like, so if you've served more than 10 years, so like say, Joe Biden served for 20 years, I'm fine with okay, let's kick him out. And that goes for anybody.
But not
So,
justices.
No, not justices.
So why not?
So because their job is to interpret the Constitution. I'm an originalist. What's the word? I think it might be originalist.
Uh-huh.
I think the Constitution should be read in a certain way and interpreted in a certain way.
Okay.
Whereas Congress is elected to represent the changing views of their constituency.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So the Supreme Court deals with a constant and how it relates to what Congress is passing based on its changing constituency's values.
Why would that change anything, though? Like, why would that change your opinion on term limits for either?
So if we're talking about, like, if we're going to stagger Supreme Court justices and we're talking it's a 10-year limit, that's it. And we're going to stagger them so not all 9 seats come up. If you want to talk, we can discuss
If all
numbers.
9 came up, you could just pack the Supreme
You could just
Court.
pack the Supreme Court for 10 years. That's
And
that's a lot of extra power in the executive and the Senate. Like, you would almost void.
You would kill any bill.
Yeah, so like imagine Donald Trump got to name all 9 Supreme Court justices. Like no one wants that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, or Joe Biden gets to name all 9 Supreme Court justices because he just so happens the 3rd year of his term happens to fall on the 10th year of everyone's term.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whereas in Congress, if you kicked them out, you're going to have renew elections, and even so, the new people who are going to be elected are going to have new ideas, whereas, and they're still elected. They can still be voted out later. Like, these are people who can't be voted out for 10 years, period.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Not really, no.
So the Supreme Court takes...
I feel like I've...
But it makes no sense to me why we would support term limits for just Congress and the executive, but not...
Well, no, I'm saying, like, I could probably get on board as long as we staggered...
It's not
We
all
found
at
some
once.
way to have it not all at once. So I could probably get on board because you could still find, like, even if let's say you're a Republican.
I mean, we can talk specifics, but hold on. This is irrelevant, and I'll tell you why. So whenever we ask, regular people, like, hey, are you for term limits for congressmen? They will tell you yes. No one asked them, like, hey, how would that work if they've already been in office for this long? But it's only now that it became the judicial branch.
There's only a handful, and part of this is the
You see
media.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with you. But part of the problem is for term limits, it's like 75% approval of Americans. Don't quote me on that. It might be higher. Maybe like 83%.
Well, it wouldn't shock me if it was higher. But, I mean...
Oh, I forgot.
Well, that's another part of
That's why.
The democracy thing. It's like it doesn't... The whole purpose of the Senate is like it doesn't really matter what percent of the people want a bill passed. That is irrelevant. As a matter of fact, it doesn't really matter what percent of the people want a president elected.
Oh, so in Congress, as far as term limits, I don't think it matters what like in either house.
What do you mean?
Like Congress people are not going to vote to limit their own careers in politics.
I'm saying it doesn't matter. The people's opinion, the way our system is set up, is irrelevant.
I agree with you, but I think it's for different reasons.
Okay. And what reasons do you have?
I think they're just going to preserve their own power and expand their own power.
Okay, so that is also my reason. So how do we differ? Because the whole point of the system of government that we have was to keep the people in power in power. I mean, that's the whole role of things like the Senate, lifetime appointments, all of this, is to contribute to the fact that, like, hey, if we can get a guy in, he's there for life. Or if we can get this senator bought, we may have this senator bought for 30 years.
Right.
And he's never going to lose his job just because he's an incumbent. You know? Like, and, you know, we can't get things with...
So what
70% approval rating passed in this country because we have a democracy that is rigged because it doesn't take into account what the people want.
I can throw in the percentages.
So
if the people want it.
So go ahead and throw in the percentages of what the odds are.
Okay, so if 0% of the United States citizens want something, there's a 3% chance it will get passed. If 100% of the U.S. population wants it, it's also a 3% chance it will get passed. But if a corporation and lobbyists want it, it's almost 80% chance it would get passed.
So money walks.
Money walks. Basically, who has the money in whose pocket?
You know, there's something I sent in a group text not too long ago, and I said big corporations and big government are both bad for the same reasons.
Okay.
That was just a.
Keep going.
Is there more there?
Why?
I mean, so
like, what are the reasons?
The two things that make you influential are, well, I guess there's three. There's money, authority, and renown. So renown makes you a man of the people. You know, so you get a JFK.
Okay.
You know, this dude's famous. Ronald Reagan also. Like, you know, you get somebody who people know, people trust because they've seen him, they've quote unquote known him. Like, you know what I'm saying? That can be exploited. Mostly for power or money. Money walks. So if you two, let's say you're Christian Cinema and Joe Manchin. And I want Build Back Better passed. But, so the good, I guess, let's not say Build Back Better. Let's say I am a oil field lobby, and I want you to vote down anything that's green energy. You make, I think it's 130,000 as a representative a year. Regardless, you make a salary, which is a good salary, six-figure salary. Most people in America would kill for that. But I'm going to give you $500,000 right now in stock in my oil field company to vote down anything that's green energy. Why am I giving you stock? Because if you decide to fuck me, your stock goes down and you make less money. I may go entirely bankrupt and you may be left entirely fucked. Or you could support me and that $500,000 I gave each of you goes up to $750,000.
Well, there's a real case there. So Joe Manchin's daughter is actually a board member on like one of the biggest coal mining what's the word? Diggers? I don't know. Coal miners?
Miners. Miners was the word you were looking for.
No. The name for the company, like manufacturer, resource plant, something. I don't know. One of the biggest in the country. And Joe Manchin's like, yeah, no Green New Deal. No Green New Deal. No green energy stuff.
Well, so because Green New Deal was dumb. Let's not say no Green New Energy.
But the thing is that within his own state, Build Back Better was at 65% approval. Because one of the big things was transition of jobs. Transitioning coal miners, steel workers, auto manufacturers to
other physical labor jobs that they could be
stuff
trained.
That they could easily be trained to. It's easily translatable.
So
if, in theory, we're not a true democracy. We're a subset of democracy. You could probably describe us as a constitutional republic, which is it's
how historically everyone has described us ever. Like, we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic. I'm not going to get into semantic word games, but
I'm going to explain. Do you know what a clade is?
A clade?
Yes.
No.
Okay. So it's a thing in, traditionally you see it in biology, where it's Homo erectus splits off into two things, splits off into two things, splits off into two
Oh,
things.
like a family tree.
Yeah, kind of. So you notice at the beginning of that, there's Homo. And then there's Homo erectus, Homo sapien, Homo sapien, Homo habilis, right? They're all Homo, aren't they? Right?
You're doing it on purpose now.
They're all Homo.
There's a super homo.
Right? So, just like there's a democracy, and then there's a pure democracy, and then there's a republic, and then within a republic, there's a representative republic, a constitutional republic, parliamentary republic. We are a constitutional republic. That's still a democracy.
We haven't taken into consideration that you can definitely rig votes.
I want to talk about all the homo in our family tree.
Right.
So,
but hold on. I just got into this. But remember what you're talking about, and don't forget.
It's already gone. Look at his face.
But in theory, what is supposed to happen in a constitutional republic is your district says, I want this bill, and you will vote on it. You will vote in support of it. In America's case, it doesn't matter what your district said. They're going to vote for you anyway. Because you're the only guy that's running half the time.
So they're not accountable for how they vote.
Right. So, what do? Well, they vote in their own interest, which oftentimes is to deepen their wallets and not to the betterment of society, which is bad.
I would agree with you. Or they would not vote with the will of their constituency, is how I would say it.
Right, so that's what I'm saying.
So the betterment of society can be broadly interpreted. But...
Well, I mean, if it's going to benefit the whole role of the Senate.
Seatbelt laws are pretty good.
So constituencies were meant for the House. That's what that was meant for. The Senate was more of, the collective. That's what you were, in theory, supposed to vote for. At least that's what it was when Rome did it. So it may hurt your district. Or your state, I guess. Your city,
your province.
State, But you did it anyway because in the long run, the long-term benefits are going to come back to help you.
In the long run, in Rome's case, it was better for Rome, not for
Well, that's the only people that got representation.
Oh, that's true. They didn't have, slavers in Egypt didn't have rights in...
Right.
In,
Italy.
Barbarians didn't have rights in Rome.
No. You had to do what we said.
So, Nick, what was your...
I was going to say, it's the problem also is with big corporations is they can definitely sway the citizens as well. So, does anyone know who used to be the big three during the Gilded Age?
Oh, yes. Yeah, Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, Carnegie. Thank you. I was struggling with the last one.
Carnegie Steel, Morgan had the railroads, Rockefeller had the oil.
Yeah, hang on, Nick. This is a good time to show off your bust.
Hold on. So, there was a Democrat running who was going to be a trust buster. Carnegie, Rockefeller, and Morgan all hated each other, but all knew that if he got elected, they were screwed. So they all came together, and they basically told all their workers, if you vote for the Democrat, don't show up on Monday, there will be no jobs. He will literally end your job.
Well, they didn't word it like that. They worded it a little bit more sneaky. That's
an actual quote from one of them. It's saying, don't show up Monday, there will be no jobs.
Right, but I'm trying to set the tone of what he said. The tone was more of it's not because I'm going to fire you. It's because I will be forced.
There will be no jobs. Right. Your job won't be here anymore because
I can't afford to do this.
Well, that's been the threat of big corporations for eternity.
And so the Republican got elected. Well, that president died, and then guess who took over? Mr. Theodore Roosevelt, whose little bust we have here. Thank God, we're having more. And he said, that Democrat guy is kind of on to something. And when he trust busted Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Morgan, a lot more jobs popped up, and that's where you see a pretty big boom for America.
Like, I will tell you, and anyone who's listened to our podcast, I am a dyed-in-the-wool, blood-red Republican. We need a trust buster. 110%, we need somebody to come in and break up monopolies. Now,
it's not always constitutional.
No, it needs to be done the right way. And I understand that
there is no right way.
You can't get it past the legislation.
Because they own the legislation.
That's true.
Which is kind of the problem.
Teddy had to do what most say are authoritative.
Illegal,
pretty much. They say he overreach of his...
Well, and are we going to deny that it was authoritarian?
Authoritarian in the sense that it...
Lincoln was authoritarian when he freed the slaves.
Yeah.
But it was for the betterment.
Authoritarian in the terms of, did he have the power to do it? No.
No.
Authoritarian in the sense that what he did was wrong? Also no. What he did was right.
I guess that so then we get into the question of right and wrong.
It depends of what you mean to be authoritarian, is what I'm
Right. So
something that needs...
The problem is nobody ever thinks it's authoritarian when it agrees with their side. Well, if let's just say a president was to come down and say, I don't care what the rules are, I'm getting rid of abortion. Period. End of story. There is no more abortion. And I will throw the doctor in jail. Period. That's done.
Right.
Okay. I can see that as still authoritarian, even though it benefits my point of view. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'm not saying you guys can't see it as authoritarian, because you're recognizing now that what he did was probably authoritarian to some definition. But so I think your argument, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think your argument is because what he did was also in accordance with the will of the populace, that is what makes it right.
Yeah,
but also authoritarian.
So the people, basically, so we all can agree monopolies are bad for American small business.
Monopolies are bad for everybody.
So
right.
When the people want them gone, and your job as a president is to do the will of the people, and you can't go through conventional matters because it's a losing fight. You know you're going to lose.
So again, this comes down to a difference in opinion on the role of the president. The role of the president could be to enforce the laws currently on the books by Congress, which is supposed to represent the will of the people. Right? But with a functioning Congress, a functioning Congress the way it's supposed to work, where they are representing the will of the people, I think that is ideal. Where you are not to exercise powers you do not have, you are to enforce what Congress passes as law. I understand that the premise here is that Congress is not functioning how it should. It's defending its own interest and the interest of corporations and the interests of anyone who's not 73 or more % of America, correct?
What do you mean?
So Congress isn't doing its job. Its job would be to represent the people, right?
Right.
Pass laws that represent their interests, their views, and their well-being.
Right.
In an ideal functioning of our government, Congress would be doing that. They are not currently doing that.
Right.
Okay? In an ideal functioning of our government, the executive would be enforcing what Congress passed because they are doing their job, and he is enforcing the will of the people as passed by Congress.
Right. That would be ideal.
But that is not, and I understand that is not what's happening. I agree with you. That's not what's happening.
Right, and that was not in his case, buddy.
Yeah, and in his case, what he did is he saw
that
Congress isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing, right?
Well, he saw that monopolies are illegal. He's the one I think who made monopolies illegal. That's why they have to be parent companies now, not
umbrella corporations.
Yes. Is because Teddy made it that way. You couldn't just buy up everybody and now they're all part of whatever company you are. No, you have to be an umbrella parent.
You have to
They still have to have their own name, they have to do their own stuff, but you get all the profits, essentially.
Well, there's also a level of risk management there, being an umbrella company. So, like, if the main company goes bankrupt, you don't go bankrupt. You can still operate as an individual entity.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of semantics in there. But functionally,
it's monopolies with extra steps.
it's functionally, yeah. I mean, I don't know that anyone would disagree with you.
So
like, Amazon functionally has a monopoly, even though they don't really have a monopoly. They can either buy out whoever they are, or they can cancel servers for like Parler.
Yeah.
Like, it is a functional monopoly.
So Teddy saw that these monopolies are illegal, so you can't be in a monopoly.
And they were outlawed before Teddy, correct?
Yes, I believe so. I believe monopolies have always been.
I actually don't know.
You don't know. Well, I'm not gonna say for fact that.
So we can't speak for facts,
No.
but
Him and definitely his cousin added a lot more restrictions on what counted as a monopoly, for
right.
sure.
Well, FDR is specifically the banks, correct?
Right,
Yes.
exactly, breaking up banks and.
But I don't know how Teddy actually. I know he did break up Carnegie, Rockefeller, them. I don't remember how he did it.
I told them that he was gonna take their assets if they didn't.
Pretty much. He basically threatened them, and they just.
But I don't know that functionally it changed.
Well, Carnegie had tried to almost kill him, I had thought. And that's why Carnegie ended up going to jail.
Did he really?
Yeah.
It must have been a white-collar prison.
It's like, yeah, probably. But he didn't. He was far old.
Well, hell, J.P. Morgan was so rich he literally bought America's debt. Is how rich he was, and it didn't do anything.
Well, so buying America's debt could be like if you're buying bonds.
No.
Like,
he went up to.
I think he bailed out the federal government.
He bailed out the Americans' debt, and it didn't do anything. It was like almost like
who was it? Rockefeller?
J.P. Morgan. He was
JP would have been oil, right?
No, that's Carnegie. No,
Carnegie Steel.
Carnegie Steel, Rockefeller Oil. J.P. Morgan owned all the railroads.
This is electric.
No.
No. It was, okay.
If there was a railroad, J.P. Morgan owned it.
Banking, too.
Oh yeah, he did do banking.
Well, that explains. I mean, that's why
he was so rich. He bought the federal government's debt, and it almost didn't affect him.
We also bought out. He may have bought out Carnegie Steel too.
No, that was Rockefeller.
Oh, maybe
Rockefeller got into steel and actually started doing better steel than Carnegie.
No. Anyway.
Well, from my understanding, it wasn't hard to beat
But
Carnegie
the whole
Steel.
point of what this guy did is, I mean, he saw a problem, and he saw that there was no ordinary way to fix this. And what I'm telling you is that's on purpose. The point of the system was to do that.
As designed by our founders.
Yes.
So one, I don't think that our founders could have anticipated the way the world was going to change.
They didn't. No, I don't think so. They anticipated. I mean, the power. I mean, James Madison.
They anticipated the power dynamics.
I mean, they saw the French Revolution before their eyes. They knew what happened whenever there was a imbalance of power to the extreme.
Eventually, there's revolt.
Exactly. So what you have to do is at least, pretend to listen and vote in their interest and stuff.
But wouldn't you argue that's what's happening now? I mean, the politics, the electorate in Congress. So we're pretty much going to stick to Congress now. We've covered the Supreme Court. I am on board if we want to talk like 10, 20. We could even talk 5 if we want to talk 5 years.
It's not,
as long as we cycle.
The only debate would honestly be how. Yeah, it's the same with Congress people.
I do think it would be.
It's just how.
I do think it would be a cycle because I think there's a lot of detriment to every president. So, if you did every 4 years, I think every president getting a super PAC on the Supreme Court would be, that just gives the executive a lot of authority. I mean, you've essentially consolidated 2 branches of government into one.
Right.
And so I would say, would you meet me at like 15 years?
I think that's what the current, the people who are advocating for term limits on justices is 15 years.
Yeah.
I could do 15 years.
I figured out how Teddy did it. He did 2 acts.
Pass through Congress?
Pure Food and Drug Act and Food and Drug Administration.
Oh, the FDA!
Yeah, he did the FDA.
Nice.
How does that affect Carnegie Steel?
Hold on.
Interesting.
Interstate Commercial Commerce.
Well, his was also...
Oh!
He also did them. He did a lot of reform.
So
Well,
he gave
his-
the executive the ability to regulate commerce in between states.
His whole thing
That was the
That's a clever fucking.
that's the authoritative part that he did.
well, that's a clever bitch right there.
his whole thing was called the Square Deal, right?
Yes, his is the square deal.
Okay, that's what I thought. But where are you going? Oh, he's in the other room.
Okay, he'll be back. So yeah, it turns out Teddy. The only thing he did, intercommercial commerce, is the only authoritative thing Teddy did. And why Republicans hate him out is because they broke up big businesses, which they don't like, mostly because they pay for them. So that's good. So apparently, the only thing authoritative he did was that. Everything
Well,
else
I
was
don't
like,
know. I don't know everything about him, so I'm sure there was something else. But
I'll have to look later on.
but I mean,
I think term limits are a good thing.
But I don't think term limits are necessarily the root of the problem, because if you've got people that actively carry out what they're supposed to do, if we have a functioning democracy, it really doesn't matter who or
Well,
what's in power.
in
Doesn't matter what party
in our ideal world, correct?
right. Well, it's not even necessarily an ideal world. I'm not talking about any specific ideas or anything. Just in a functioning democracy.
So,
Like,
but
that's how it's supposed to work.
so there's different definitions of a functioning democracy, though. So do you have a purely majoritarian democracy, a pure democracy?
Well, so
I would say a functional constitutional
So the problem
democracy.
is-
Well, even in our constitutional democracy is not working. Because even in our constitutional democracy,
Nope.
the whole idea of there was never minority rule ever supposed to apply. As a matter of fact, we're the only country, I think, in the world that is a democracy that allows for minority rule.
So the problem is.
So by minority rule, you are specifically talking about the filibuster in the Senate, correct?
Well, not just that.
No,
I mean,
filibuster and the Senate.
well, there's a lot. I mean, minority rule basically
Electoral
rules
college.
the country. Like that's
Yeah, I don't know how
that,
you, how you win by 8 million votes and still not become president.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Are you referring to Hillary Clinton or?
no, I think she won by 2 million.
That wasn't a lot.
Well,
I mean, Joe Biden won by 7 million. That's why he won the election because
Like, I don't get how you.
so-
but here's
so-
the thing. Here's the thing about that. If
this is going to be a long podcast,
if he-
just so you know.
if he wins by, I think he won by like 7.6 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you decrease his votes by 600,000 in a bunch of key states, I mean, he still got 7 million extra votes. but
So he could have won by
lost.
7 million.
Well, in theory, you could lose. That's the problem with the.
He could lose by
Electoral College.
30 million and
It wouldn't matter as long
Well,
as you win
look at
the right numbers. As long as you win the puzzle.
So hang on, because I'm going to defend the Electoral College. Nick, do you want to go ahead and shit on it a little bit more? Not that why it was overtly.
Look at, Jackson and who was it? The other Adams,
Quincy.
Adams. So Jackson had a lot more votes for popularity, but he tied electorally, and then it went to the House.
Right.
And he got cheated because the House literally said, "We know Jackson is what the people want." But we're going to do Adams because Adams is our best interest.
So are we trying to conquer power, money and power in the political system, or are we trying to conquer why we aren't a pure democracy? Like, are we trying to advocate
I'm
for
not advocating for a pure democracy. I'm asking for the system we have to currently work. Now, I do think that the electoral college system is outdated, and many historians will tell you it was never intended to go this far with 50 states. It was never planned for that.
That's better. With
But
It's
okay.
better for-
But a lot of things weren't ever planned for 50 states. I mean, George Washington and the original
didn't
Continental
adapt.
Congress
the system.
didn't.
We just
Because it was functional. I mean, so we essentially have a president that alternates with the voting populace. You know, we're typically about 45% Democrat, 45% Republican, and 10% independent.
So here's the thing.
And we have a president's record that shows that.
In 5 elections, you guys have won the popular vote once, and you have won 3 times. You get Obama twice, Bush won once, lost the popular vote the first time, won it the second time, Trump lost it, and then
I think
just
Reagan,
now,
Right.
Reagan was the last one to win the popular vote, and
But I also think that the Electoral College is a combatant against
I would say Bush did.
it's a combatant against echo chambers. So you get into California, And California, oddly enough, has the most Republicans of any state. They just don't.
Yeah, I think
it's because their population's so high.
Right.
Like it's basically once you go
They're
north
still
of
outnumbered by Democrats.
once you go north of LA.
But under the current system that we have, their votes literally do not count.
Right.
Versus, I mean, do I think a pure democracy is the best system in the world? Probably not. But
Almost certainly not.
do I think that? Do I think that in terms of
The inventor would tell you no.
in terms of picking the executive, it would definitely be an improvement. Like, because you can, I mean, the states are just kind of drawn in a way.
So what?
Like
If we were to discuss getting rid of the Electoral College, I would want to know the options on the table. So are we talking like Nebraska and Maine, where we're splitting the electoral votes among how many? You know what I'm saying? So like suddenly the Republicans in California, their vote does count.
They do it based off districts. The only problem with that is you get gerrymandering, which again is a system that
And is in fact under the control of Democrats right now. And a bunch of Republicans are bitching because that's what you do when the other party gets gerrymandering rights. You bitch.
Yes.
That's party wide.
Yes.
And everybody rigs it in their favor, at least some.
Right.
Republicans right now are saying, well, they're doing it a lot in their favor, and it's like, have you seen Dan Crenshaw's district?
Yeah, do we
We've showed it on this podcast before.
Is Houston?
Like-
Is Houston?
Yes.
Or it's
No. It's okay. It's Houston.
It's everywhere except Houston.
Right. It's everywhere except downtown.
It's got the very bottom of the H. It's got that part of
You know the dudes who draw those districts? They're scientists, actually. They're political analysts.
I thought they were blind.
And I think
dartboard.
So here's what I would argue, and it could still keep kind of what you're worried about, I guess. So you could just say, so let's say you win 60% of Oklahoma, and you lose 40%. Well, 60% of Oklahoma's votes go to the winner, 40% goes to the loser, regardless of districts.
Yeah.
That's fine with me.
So here's the problem. Is how
It's the only way to
how do we
ensure
make
everyone's
sure
votes
but how do we make sure that the minority, so let's say it's a 51-49 split, right? And I'm not saying it's been that close in electoral, like presidential elections. There's some that it's been that close.
I was about to say, some definitely have been.
How do we make sure that just because you've got that 2% majority, you don't just do whatever you want? Because there's still 49% of the country who doesn't want what you want.
Well, at the end of the day, we can't have minority rule. That's how you get the French Revolution. Or the Russian Revolution.
The 49% is the one that wanted to keep slavery.
But is 49% a minority?
Yes.
I mean, that's a duality.
So here's what I would advocate.
Essentially.
Because the 51% has to, in my opinion, they have to win the presidency at least. Because if not, then you literally have a majority of the country that did everything they were supposed to do, and they lost because you guys figured out how to draw imaginary lines.
But the same thing could be said for Congress.
I agree. I 100% agree.
I see the problem.
So
actually, I think this might pan out a lot.
So I don't have a problem with representatives. I would still do them statewide rather than, so let's say, so this is how other countries do it. So like Germany, there is no districts. There, you vote for the party, the person, and then they tally up all the votes and they do a percentage.
I'm just saying this is how Hitler got elected.
Well, Hitler got elected
by popular vote.
By kind of
No, never.
Yeah.
Not once.
By minority power.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the problem, don't we think?
No, but you're advocating for Germany's system of elections, which elected Hitler.
That's not the model.
And now I'm doing a little bit of.
That was sneaky what you just did.
As that was. I'll cop to it. But what I'm associating your plan with what got Hitler elected, and that's not fair because it doesn't mean that Hitler's going to get elected every time. But
we have too many art schools.
This is the system that enabled Hitler to get elected.
No,
and gave him supreme power.
Well, the system that gave him supreme power.
I'm just saying, if you give the majority rule all the time, the majority sometimes does horrible shit.
Right. and I understand that.
Not in Hitler's case, he was minority.
And it makes valid points.
That's a valid.
And
so,
the minority.
it really feels like, and I'll be straight with you. It really feels like you're going to have issues no matter what happens. So
yes,
I agree, but I think the problem is that like I see, because more and more people are getting pissed off because, like we will continue to see this pattern arise where a minority president gets elected. And that's
because
problem.
Republicans are in the minority right now.
Well, yes. And there's no way.
But Republicans haven't always been the minority in this country.
Well, I don't particularly care which party is or is not in the minority. If you're in the minority, you need to advocate for policies.
I think you don't care
that
because your party's in the majority.
I wouldn't say I have a party. I am fed up.
You
with
are
Democrats
probably independent. Nick's definitely just chaotic neutral.
What's his name in Fallout New Vegas?
Benny?
No. The robot. Yeah,
Yes
man. He's chaotic libertarian.
He is. Nick, we were before this podcast, we were discussing what our ideal forms of government. Nick, what's your ideal form of government?
Anarchy?
It's not a system of government, is it?
Only when the shackles of government are free.
I was gonna say, look at the camera. Look at the camera. We're talking to the viewers right now.
Look.
He's a crazy son of a bitch.
I'm coming for you.
I love you, Mom, but I'm sorry he is.
But, so... forgot my point. But, so...
This is going to be a long podcast.
So if I was to predict a winner for 2024, I would bet on the Republicans, at least right now.
Everyone would bet on Republicans.
And I hope you win the popular vote. And not by a little. Because it's the only thing that may keep this freaking country together. Because whoever wins next needs to win big.
Big. Especially if we don't pass any kind of federal regulations.
Well, I think 8 million votes is big.
8 million votes pretty big. You're close to 10 million. I ain't gonna argue with you.
That's a lot of people. That's more than Oklahoma statewide.
Is it really? I don't. He might be fake news. Nobody quote us on that.
300 million, 50 million people. I don't know about that one yet. Look us up. I don't know. Maybe we're 3 million. I feel like that's close to what we are. But that would mean Joe Biden won by 2 Oklahomas.
3.4 million, basically. We're 4 million. He won by 2.
Holy crap.
He won by 2 Oklahomas. 3.957 in 2009.
We are a lot of farmland.
I guess it's true.
Kansas is 2 million.
He won by 4 Kansases. That's kind of crazy when you think. Anyway, but my whole thing is, so like, if we don't have a good system of government. It was good for when our founders sort of made it.
I would argue that we have a corrupted system of government.
Yeah. Okay, so
how do we fix the problems? Is what I want to do. How do I keep the system? How do I keep the system and we move from this corrupted version to the ideal version we all agreed on?
Okay, so I agree with you, and I just want to throw this out there. I think any form of government on paper can work.
Well, and you're right. Strictly on paper, communism works. It's just any time it's put into practice. And China did learn a lot. Like, you have to have a free market,
as long as you're not the rationed.
So,
which is typically how it happens.
I am not a communist.
He loves China.
Dude, he is a communist cumbucket. Don't let him lie to you.
I do not think that the government needs 100% control of the means of production. That's not me. I am not a tanky. I am not.
It's like 85%, right?
Honestly, just the
call this man.
I am not a communist.
Significant resources. So, like the military, the government needs a strict monopoly over that means of production, in my opinion. That's why.
But they already have it.
Look, that's what I'm saying. Good. That's
no, National Guard.
No, that's state. This is state. I mean, state is in any government. So, like cops, I would count in that, not just the military, Fed and state. But they control the means of production.
Stupid Fed boy.
But Russia was able to take like the 5th or 6th or 7th power in Europe, and they become defeating Hitler. and then they become one of the biggest economies in the world.
So I think communism works best when you have a united, like, and I mean like not 66%. I'm talking like 80, 90% united culture.
China.
And I would agree with you. So
that's why China works. We've talked about it.
And honestly, I mean, even people like to say communism. I mean, Cuba.
Well, that and China, kind of like the dissenters.
Now, that's not saying that any of these countries don't have problems. Russia had gulags.
China's got Muslim camps. Why the fuck why does the Middle East keep trying to go to war with us? Iran just bombed a military base in Iraq. And it's like, what? Why?
Because
I know it's because we killed Soleimani. But also, like, they're literally killing a whole bunch of your people and you just don't... You know what? They don't want that smoke.
North Korea has no problems.
That's right, Nick. North Korea has no problem.
You see a South Korean guy defected in a North Korean side? That motherfucker going the wrong way.
Dude,
He defected to the north?
He went to the north.
Wow.
He crossed the demilitarized zone heading north. And everything I see is like, dude, you're heading the wrong way.
He had to have family in North Korea who was trying to get out, right?
He has to have a death.
Even if you were running from the cops, there's no way.
Dude, no, y'all shoot me. I ain't going to North Korea.
Jeez. Anyway, but yeah, I think any system can work. Given, I mean, I feel like everywhere is pretty much proven. I mean,
well, in principle,
nobody thought democracy would work till we tried it out.
I mean, when Karl Marx designed communism, there is no snafus in his writing. Like, I have read the Communist Manifesto. There is no people starve to death.
Commie.
No, it's just the same reason I watch CNN. I like to know what y'all fuckers are trying to peddle.
What you mean, y'all? I watch official.
Karl Marx had a couple of pretty good points. Right? Would you not say
yeah. I mean, there are solid points in Karl Marx writings. It's just...
Yeah.
So the way he attempts to fix them. So everyone wants to fix...
And that's the thing.
Everyone wants to fix the proletariat. Everyone wants to fix, like, look, working class Americans struggle. Okay? That's not fair. Right? Can we all agree?
Right.
There is no reason that, let's say I own a business and you two are my employees. There is no reason that I should live on a high horse while y'all live in the gutter.
Right.
Right? Yeah. And I'm paying you what you'll accept because I can.
This man
and I would pay
minimum wage laws.
Because
I do hate minimum wage laws.
You know, I'm not against the free
There's a
market.
reason I hate minimum wage laws, though. And I don't think they're counterintuitive either.
Okay. Well, I don't necessarily hate the free market.
Wyatt rolled his eyes into his hat when I said that.
So I don't necessarily hate the free market. The free market has done a lot
of good globally.
Right.
I mean, there are less people today starving to death. There are less people
America,
today.
Right. So like
for the globe.
Yeah, I think that too.
There
are
less people.
What I am against is exploitation. That is what I'm against.
I'm against that too. There are less people today starving in Africa than 20 years ago. There are less people today starving in Africa than 5 years ago, Nick.
Not if you ask Nestle.
That's South America. That's South America.
But the motive is what most people will get you on for, because we don't feed those people because their life has value.
We feed them because they are productive.
Because it is profitable to feed them.
Because they are productive.
The second it is not profitable or productive, the food goes away.
But is good, or is good for a bad reason bad?
No, I agree with you. You know, we still take the net good. We take the net good.
It's a net benefit. Society as a whole, and I'll thank you for talking to me on the phone the other night, because society as a net goal is increasing. Period. Less people are dying of disease. Less people are dying of natural disasters. Less people are dying of starvation. Less people are dying of dehydration. As a planet, and I am not a globalist, but as a planet, the things we are doing as a planet result in net benefit. Right. I'm not saying there's no evil done on this planet. I mean, there's tons of evil done on this planet every day.
Right. No, I agree.
So essentially, we're getting slave labor, though.
Come again?
So I'm not excusing the slave labor of Nestle, Nick. What I'm saying is, as a global society,
so they're not hungry. So the slaves weren't hungry. in, the 1700s.
Let
But
me-
they were still slaves.
Okay,
they
let me-
weren't treated well.
Okay, so
I'm
let
not.
me,
Okay, I think you might be misunderstanding my point.
let me take a crack at this.
Yep.
Okay. So feudalism, you could throw a couple of good cases of feudalism, okay? And then mercantilism comes along, and that is almost certainly an improvement because it introduces to the free market. And then capitalism comes around, and that is almost certainly an improvement on the past two, okay? And then, we have since stuck with a long history of capitalism.
Since what, the 1400s?
I would say capitalism really kicked off like the mid 1600s. Like really, because that's whenever
I would have thought the late 1400s, early 1500s, because that's when Columbus is like, hey, look, here we go. And this is also when we're kicking Jews out of Europe because they're making too much money, and the Europeans want to make all that money. Like that's a
Everyone wants that money.
right, and then
That's,
we
maybe I would agree
go
with
into
you.
a
Maybe
whole
I would
bunch
agree
of-
with
and
you.
then we go to colonialism for the European, and then we're like, we can't do that anymore.
I will say something about America. We got rid of colonialism real quick.
Well,
No, and then we did it ourselves.
No, we became imperialist, but we weren't colonialist.
I was fixing. Okay, that's fair. I'd agree.
Like,
I'd agree. We're
because
imperialists.
we colonized Alaska, and then we colonized Hawaii, and we were like, look, guys, we're in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Well, the thing is we colonized stuff that wasn't valuable. Like, no offense to Guatemalans,
Philippines.
you don't have oil or anything.
So in the time, you didn't have energy.
Exactly, you didn't have anything.
Pots
Like,
on heads.
Africa had.
What you did have
Mountains.
was the narrowest strait in the entire Western Hemisphere. But
Panama.
oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
Which he gave.
I apologize. But Africa and mountains of gold.
Yeah, so, I mean, but in terms of going way back to what you were saying at first, trying to fix the problems that are causing the problems now, and that's all fine and good, but if we're not open to some change that we might not like, I mean, America can only get so much more divided, and I don't want any more January 6th period.
if you've seen our totalitarian podcast, we are headed, if we don't do something,
Yeah.
we are headed to a totalitarian regime. Because what happens, to get a totalitarian regime, you have to have a minority that is so angry and slow, at least in America. In Germany, it wasn't quite the case. But in America, you have to get a minority that's so angry, that's so pissed off, and that hate, that anger slowly. You ever been around a person that just is super pissed off?
I'm looking at him.
No, I'm not.
He's
I'm
angry also.
a pretty chill guy.
The guy who makes me angry, I'm looking at him.
Asshole. It's because I said abortion should be outlawed, isn't it? No.
Possibly.
Damn it. You ever been around an angry person and it spreads to you like it's a disease?
Yeah.
And that's I mean you've got at least let's say at least 25% of America. That is God, honestly, that feels like an overestimate. We have a very angry bottom line. Let's say we've got, let's say 5% either way. So we've got a very angry Democrat base, and we've got a very angry Republican base. People who are crazy enough to think, let's storm the fucking Capitol. I understand that the Republicans actually stormed the Capitol, or at least Trump supporters. I wouldn't call them Republicans. But
Nut jobs.
you've got nut jobs. You've got 10% nut jobs in America who are very angry for whatever reason. And then you've got 35%, so a total of 70%, that lean from the middle, and they're around these people who are constantly angry. And that hate, that anger slowly infects and spreads like a virus. Yeah. And, it's the same thing as good intentions. Like if you got, if there are 3 people in a room right now, if Wyatt was just pissed off at the fucking world and couldn't do, couldn't get over it. So every word out of Nick's mouth, he was telling him to fuck off, which...
Eventually we get...
Fuck off! I mean, anyway, eventually, Nick would get angry.
But
You know what I'm saying? Like, it bleeds over.
so, in my evaluation, go ahead and finish.
No, you do have a good point. I was
You
fucking
told me
with
to
you.
fuck off.
I was fucking with you. Don't be sad, little brother.
Oh,
You're my favorite out of the two of you.
Yay! Go fuck yourself, way.
Wyatt had my back on the first podcast of the year, so you might be dropping a little bit. You might have to... Oh, that's right.
He wouldn't throw it. No,
He
has too much
would
respect.
not. Now he's going to find something else to throw in my man cave.
Anyway, so in my evaluation of
No,
America,
it's
as we continue to decline the global ladder, we will probably see a rise in the number of people who are pissed off, because it's not too far along as we decline. That's going to affect the people who have the littlest the most.
Go ahead.
So I have a hypothesis.
I'm just going to grab the whole damn 12-pack.
Okay. With when it comes to empires. So you see this a lot with empires. This happened to Rome. This happened to any major empire. They always start out one form of government.
Okay.
Usually monarch, something of that sort.
Well, so literally every civilization ever started as a monarch, except in the Western Hemisphere.
So then the people get tired. They get upset. They overthrow the monarch. They usually install a democracy
No.
of some sort. They
No,
install
historically they installed a new monarch. So historically, the idea of a new system of government is exceedingly rare. Typically what you did was you overthrew the old tyrant,
'cause look
and you
at Rome.
installed a new tyrant.
Look at Rome.
They installed Caesar,
No, Rome was a republic before Caesar.
and they installed
They
Caesar.
Caesar went back to being an emperor. He installed the emperor again. So Rome went from emperor to republic back to emperor, and then they had a few emperors for a while, and then they went back to a republic. So when you think about
he's right.
yeah.
I guess I've missed the Second Republic phase. I guess it's probably because the Roman Empire wasn't widespread.
well,
They were
sacked.
severely diminished after the Empire,
It
right?
got sacked again, and then it broke up into two different: the Byzantine and the Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah, but then the Byzantine fell to the Ottomans, right?
no.
Later, it lasted longer.
Long
I thought.
time. So
Did it really?
Yeah, I think the Byzantine lasted
So the Holy Roman Empire collapsed, and
Well, this is
before-
just the Roman Empire. The Holy
So-
Roman Empire is like Germany.
so we're getting into historical.
So usually these, especially in recent times, they go look at you go from monarch democracy back to an emperor or some sort of monarch. Look at France. France went from monarch republic to their little democracy to Napoleon. So usually the people get fed up, overthrow the monarchy, try to install some sort of government where everyone has a voice. And then they, somewhere along the way, they mess up, and the people get tired again, they do another revolution, they usually install one figurehead. And it's just
Holy shit.
It's just an endless cycle of republic, monarch, republic, and it's kind of...
Well, so I would expand that cycle because it's republic, anarchy, monarch, anarchy.
Anarchy doesn't last long. They usually get together.
Then why do you advocate for it?
Oh, because I think the only time...
Their only hope is in that,
Oh, no,
that
I love
2-3 year period where it's a power
No,
grab
but
from everyone's serious.
you're very right though.
Look, okay,
Isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Look at Seattle. When Seattle was, overthrown by those stupid morons, they literally went from literally democracy to the only guy who had guns became the little emperor there.
Well, it was also Seattle.
So,
Like if Oklahoma had something like that, there'd be a whole lot of kings in Oklahoma City because
so
there's
you
a
look
lot
at
of
it,
guns.
There's just a sort of rotation of people getting fed up, overthrowing the government, installing a new one. Over time, getting fed up, overthrowing the government, installing a new one. It's just an endless little.
I agree with you.
Wheel turning.
Right? Like, is there anything he said that's not right?
I think it's an oversimplification, but yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's even an oversimplification. Like I think you're
I gotta dumb
right.
it down for y'all.
Oh.
Well, I didn't really disagree with it. I just thought it was a little too...
No, now he's dumbing it down for you.
But as far as like
It's just
changes
it's just a hypothesis.
as far as changes we can make to fix this,
Hang on, because I want to say something. With Nick's comment, we have to make changes
otherwise, you
that
use
prevent
the overthrowing.
the overthrowing.
well, that's what little, because I think that the people who do rule know what you say too. And they know that. So they have to give us scraps every now and then.
Every king's worst nightmare was his
These
head
are
on the
things
chopping
like,
block.
the Civil Rights Act and, the...
So they have to give you some rights. Like during the British Revolution, they made the king sign the Magna Carta, Otherwise, his head was coming off.
But the problem is if you go authoritarian too soon before everyone's really on board with it, or you've
It
got
crumbles.
enough people on board with
It crumbles.
you get the shit slaps back, right?
Yeah. You have to. Look
So
at
here's
Hitler.
a
Hitler
qu-
bided his time until he had overwhelming support and knew he could do it. And same with Stalin.
No,
same with
okay, so
Mussolini.
it wasn't an overwhelming support. Now Mussolini did
In
have
the government, wouldn't you agree?
Mussolini had overwhelming support because everyone hated the socialists. But Hitler was a little bit of a different story. He was a
Hitler had the
conglomerate.
people.
No, he didn't. No, he did. So
say
he was
again?
Hitler had the people.
He was charismatic, but I don't think he had the people. What he had was a conglomeration of. So let's imagine you have 5 corporations. You had 5 corporations. He had friends in high places and everywhere.
And
Everywhere.
so I'll say this with
And the minority couldn't do anything about it.
about Adolf's governing strategy. Number one, he had the right people in the right spots. So let's say, this is going to be a bad example, I'm sorry. But let's say instead of a Pence there, let's say it was
Donald Trump
someone-
Jr.
Exactly. Or a
I like Donald Trump Jr., but let's say it's someone who's entirely loyal to Trump,
loyalist
period.
To like the T, right? So that's what Adolf had. And Germany was a coalition government anyways. But he also, you remember
Parliamentary,
those, well, they're a coalition now, I just assumed. But, so you know how you talked about those people that were pissed off? Well, that was a much higher percent at this point in Germany. And
I don't think
They're
that's a much
also-
higher percent, though.
they're also
lot of
highly,
people are pissed off
highly
at World War I.
motivated.
That's true.
They're poor.
They have a lot of energy.
Think about this. It costs
That's what it
$10
takes to
trillion
have-
for a crumb of bread in Germany at the time because they printed money.
Oh, what was their name of the money?
Is it the
Marks?
Marks?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Is it the Marks?
Yeah.
I think it's German Marks.
Google it, Nick. That's what I was asking. But
Goddamn Google resident.
I mean, that's what it takes in order for minority rule to happen. Is you need the minority to be damn motivated.
The Reichsmark.
The Reichsmark. Okay.
Okay, so
It's Russian marks.
wait.
Reich is German.
As I say, I think it
No. I'm saying like that's where I got mark was the Russian mark.
But
Reichsmark.
yeah. So as far as like changes we could do in America to stop and kind of fix the democracy, I mean, you're gonna have to change the system at some point. I mean,
So is the solution though? Is it really a systemic change, or is it an individual change?
so that there is no individual change that can happen because the individual's
Stop hating
opinion,
people.
The individual's opinion is irrelevant because they don't make the votes on the policy.
It's really hard to change something when you.
Nick, you support abortion, right?
I mean, personally, I don't care what someone does with their body, but in a sense, yeah, I'll say yeah.
You are pro-choice.
Yes.
Okay? I am pro-life. I do not hate you. I disagree with your opinion, but I do not hate you. I have a buddy at work who is very socially inclined. I'm not going to call him a socialist. I don't hate him. I disagree with him. That's what I mean by individual. Like,
But that has
can I not hate someone who disagrees with me? But I understand that there is a systemic problem. Like, so I don't hate him. I hate AOC. I don't. Hate is a very strong
I don't
word.
hate anybody.
I
hate
so
policies.
no. I hate people too.
I'm not going to say I don't hate people.
Yeah, fair enough. I hate
But
people.
AOC saying that we are making fun of her for being in Florida because we want to fuck her. No, it's because you're a hypocrite. But I think you might be right. I think the solution isn't just not hate your neighbor. I think we need a lot more of don't hate your neighbor in
Society
America.
would be better, but it's not really tackling the problem here.
The problem is the congressional.
Because the problem here is that the system allows. So even if we all got into a room, and if we could fit all of America to vote on something, in theory that should pass if it gets 100% approval. But it doesn't matter if the 1% that voted against it is the people in power, right? That's the problem.
Right.
And even in a representative democracy, if you have a certain amount of people that want this bill, I mean, you gotta pass the bill, regardless of what you might think. I mean, that means you're gonna stomach shit you don't like, because I'm sure all of us have something about America that we would prefer if it was not there or it was there.
So, okay, I think the problem now is on both sides. Republicans do not want to stomach what we don't like. But you need to understand, when you make these rule changes, you're going to have to stomach things you don't like either.
Well, we kind of have that. For example, most people are pro-guns. They don't want a ban on all firearms. Most people, at best, just want to enforce the current laws we have on the books. Like, if you catch a felony with a gun, you have to take the gun, and you have to take him to jail. Half the time, that law does not even get enforced.
So is the answer no more extremism?
Not no more extremism.
I would offer no more extremism. We shouldn't have crazy people.
I mean, I would prefer no extremism.
You're going to have extremists, and I'll give you that. But is the argument, or is the solution no more extremism? Or is the problem... See, I think this is a twofold problem. I think we need individual change.
Let's try it like this.
Go.
If, go the other way.
Yeah.
There's the camera.
Oh. Well, come on back. But, so, let's say, for example, if we get...
Oh, I'm so fat.
Because, honestly...
He was fat, wasn't he, Wyatt?
Most of America, I feel like on the moral stuff, we're pretty close. Like, pretty much everyone is going to be like, yeah, you probably shouldn't murder somebody. The only time where that ever pushes an envelope is whenever we're deciding, well, is that even a moral question? Or is it a rights question? It's like the abortion one. That's not a moral question to most Americans. And if we polled most Americans about the freedom of choice, it would be without a doubt, it's going to stay.
Right, it's something like 70%.
Right. That, in a functioning
so here's
have
the question.
to have that freedom of choice.
Here's a question then about abortion. If there's 70%, why does it not get passed into law through Congress? What interest does Congress have in fighting abortion? Because you could probably, as it sits right now, get a 66% pro-choice majority. Or a 66 vote in the Senate.
I don't think so. Considering
so
we
why
have 50
not?
Republicans. That's like a big thing.
You don't think there are you don't
platform.
think there's pro-choice Republicans?
Not very openly, no. Trump tried it for a little bit.
Maybe that is
lost
it. Maybe
a dip
it's
of his base. It's kind of like, are there anti-gun Republicans? It's like, well, I don't think so. Like maybe I mean,
abortion is a foundation of the Republican Party.
Right. It's one of the cores.
And by that, I of course mean anti-abortion is a foundation of the Republican Party, not.
Right. No, I guess for the
I'm just for the audience in case someone wants to take me out of context.
But
that damn Garrett's a Democrat.
So let's
proof.
What?
Not in 4K.
But the whole thing is like. So, like, Nick, let's say, for example, well, we'll do healthcare for an example.
Yeah.
Let's say if we get to some point where 70% of this country wants free healthcare. Our politicians don't want free healthcare. They're bought and paid for by Big Pharma, who would do nothing but lose power.
Which is weird, because y'all guys support Big Pharma's efforts in the vaccine, but,
I super do not. But,
Wait, what?
Yeah, no. But,
no, here's the problem.
I need you to explain that.
Well, hold on. This is a bigger topic. We'll discuss this another day.
Most surgeries cost more than some families' income.
Oh yeah, like if you get like a disc surgery,
so my knee surgery was
$6,000 or 6 figures.
Yeah,
I saw a TikTok actually. It was a guy. I know. It wasn't a girl shaking her ass for once. No, it was actually he's a doctor, and I don't know what department he's in, but he was talking about like, you get paid by the insurance company. He's like, no, I don't get paid. He's like, well, what is the process to get your money? And he's like, well, I have to make a contract with the insurance company, and then I get a check written by the insurance company, and then da-da-da-da. It's like, so you work for the insurance company.
So this is basically how it works. So, since insurance is now a thing, hospitals have to inflate their prices so that way they still make a profit. So whereas IV costs $6 to make, with insurance, they got to make it, $150 now because they know insurance is going to hit it. The problem is if you don't have insurance, you're paying that fake price.
Right.
And so, my knee surgery was $10,000, I think, and it was just literally putting a cadaver in, and taking a little cartilage.
You needed a new ligament, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
I tore a ligament, and $10,000 for a cadaver and to take out a little bit of cartilage.
That's pretty cheap surgery too.
It
I feel
is.
like I should tell you.
Oklahoma's one of the has a hospital now that's one of the only hospitals that does fixed prices. Like they'll tell you up front this is how much it costs, and it's pretty cheap considering.
So I've actually, if we're talking healthcare reform, the buddy I mentioned earlier, we've actually discussed healthcare reform, and he advocates for a Japanese system, which the Japanese system is something approaching what Trump wanted, where you would post prices online. And that was the price, period. It was an open market. And it was a price whether you had insurance or not.
Right. That's actually the place in Oklahoma does that.
Right. But that's what he advocates for, is one of the solutions. Of course, he also advocates for universal-wide healthcare. But I'm not totally against that. I would count myself as a supporter for, the government...
Well,
marks a maximum price for a surgery.
have you seen what hospitals can charge you for?
They could charge you $3,000 for an IV bag, which is a little bit of salt and some water. So
no. There's a little thing where say you
wrap you for gauze, if you do gauze they put in your teeth and wounds and stuff. It's like $250.
I will say
they do emotional shit.
They do emotional shit. They charge you for diapers. If you don't bring your own diapers when you have a newborn baby, they charge you for that. They give you a hospital give bag, and they charge you for everything in that, regardless.
Say you're in the middle, they told you bad news, your husband might not make it, and you cry, and the doctor, the nurse has to comfort you. They charge you for that,
or they can charge you.
Most of them do.
Okay.
It goes under emotional something.
Emotional support.
Yeah.
Or some bullshit.
And it's $50.
So I'm for the price caps. Bernie advocated for them too. I'm a huge fan of that.
Price caps?
Yeah.
I thought you said gap. I'm sorry.
So in other words, you can only charge so much for a knee surgery.
Absolutely.
I'm on board with that.
So here's the issue that you're going to get from the Republican side, and not particularly me, but from the Republican side, you're going to get that these doctors went through an education that is worth this much. These hospitals have to pay a doctor God, I don't want to say living wage, a wage that is enough to justify his education and pay off his loans. It does not justify his education purely.
Just because you got a degree does not mean that degree pays well.
Tell teachers that.
Well, that's what you guys do tell teachers.
And I would. So a lot of teachers, at least in our state, don't have to have degrees. But
that's only because we're at a shortage.
But we can have a discussion. There's so many problems that are coming up in this. We've gotten a year's worth of podcast topics off this one podcast.
The whole point is, if that polls, I think if yes, the Fox News exit polls every election cycle, even in the midterms, they come out.
The midterms were really shocking,
and they ask them, and it's something
this current election. I'm sorry,
and it's something like 75% of this country supported if they asked universal health care. Even amongst Democrats, even amongst Republicans, it was over 65.
Yep.
That is that's insane support that we haven't seen since the likes of JFK or Reagan.
Well, George W. Bush.
Yeah, for a little bit. But
it was 6 months, but hey, he had it. Damn it.
Yeah, we'll let him have it.
National tragedy.
56% disapproval ratings for Biden right now. I'm just saying, we're gonna...
Did you see Kamala's came out at only 40?
Oh, dude. At 40% disapproval?
No. Yeah. No, hold on. I think it was 45.
I'm talking
Gallup poll.
I'm talking majority disapprove of Biden.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But I can't believe people care about Kamala Harris that much. I thought she was at like 36.
I haven't been able to find anything that's not in the mid-40s.
Don't quote me.
But
on healthcare, there's got to be some changes made. So there's been too many concessions made to Big Pharma, which is essentially a monopoly. Correct?
Yeah, no, I agree.
There's been too many concessions made, and we've built an entire industry of insurance companies that are exploiting healthy people for the benefit of unhealthy people.
Right. Well,
right.
So what I'm...
Hospitals hope to get...
So hang on.
No. Hold on. So the issue is relevant. I'm using healthcare as an example. I'm saying...
Right, we got to get back to the main topic.
Specifically, if anything falls at a certain percent...
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Because we're all starting to see that, like, yeah, we can all get on board with this. And we come from 3 very different ideological perspectives. But, it doesn't matter. Because the ones making the votes are influenced by other means.
So this is a rare thing that we're all pissed off about the same thing.
Right.
I would surmise that the solution to this is money, or the problem with this is money in politics.
Well, there's a campaign finance reform bill that just passed the House.
It is not just a campaign
Well, they passed like 6 other things with it.
Oh.
But
like you don't sell, here I'm selling you a pen, but it also has a hand grenade attached, and when you click it...
They're separate bills. Like, you can pass a section of each bill. So, like, if you pass an entire bill through the House, the Senate can only pass section 3.
But the last time that we tried to pass sections of a bill, and not the other sections of a bill, we got a split bill. It was Build Back Better and the stimulus bill. It wasn't called the stimulus bill.
I have no idea.
But there was Build Back Better and this other thing, and they combined them into one and passed them in the House, and they sent them to the Senate, and the Senate was like, no, we're only going to pass the infrastructure bill. And then everyone was bitching because this is still stuck in the Senate. Like, again, people are getting pissed off because they can't get everything they want.
Well, this is a democracy. That's the way it works. You don't get everything you want. And unfortunately to people, that means making concessions. Nobody likes that.
But Republicans have already made concessions, right? We've passed the infrastructure bill.
Okay.
The half of that bill
the other half
that they found
is
relevant.
The more popular half, though. That's what I don't understand. Build Back Better. That's the part that I'm telling you. Like, polls at like
it's like
70-something% approval.
If we have drinks and we all took a vote, and one was way more popular, and I said, yeah, instead I'm gonna give you this drink that no one wanted, and that's now what we have to drink.
So if the choices were whiskey and Coke or a Budweiser, and you guys chose Budweiser, I'm going to be pretty pissed off that I got a Budweiser. I hate beer.
No, it's we all chose whiskey, and we were given Budweiser instead. And you're like...
No.
Whiskey's still in progress.
No. It is, we all agreed... Actually, no, so me and Nick agreed on whiskey. Okay, so we got our whiskey. Now the second part of it is Budweiser. And you two want Budweiser, and I want more whiskey. I am understandably upset that I have been outvoted.
I give you two options. These two options come to us: whiskey and Budweiser.
This whole example is ridiculous.
Shut up, Wyatt.
Just like
Wyatt's a tequila guy.
So both is alcohol. That we've broken them apart like they did the bill. You got whiskey, which is much more popular, and then you got the Budweiser, which is not as popular but still.
Now I'm going to make this a lot more simple, and it's going to be a way that you guys can understand what actually happened. Okay, they promised you two whiskey and Coke. All right, and instead what they gave you was just the Coke. And then when you drank the Coke, you were rightfully a little upset, weren't you? Because you wanted whiskey.
Oh, God damn it.
And Coke, but they gave you the part that you were honestly less excited about. the part that honestly you aren't looking forward to that much.
Damn, he did make a good...
Give him a high five. Give him a high five. That was good.
That's a better analogy than what we were doing.
And accurate.
Yeah,
So
you're... That's a justification for why Democrats are upset.
Right, and let me just say that comes in all different shapes and sizes. For example, most Americans were on board with the Trump tax cuts. They wanted them to be permanent, but...
They were also on board
part,
with the Trump medicinal cuts. Like insulin. I heard Joe Biden.
Yes.
I heard Joe Biden comment on the price of insulin, and I was like, "You mother! Do you think I'm a newborn?"
I saw a thing.
I saw you revoke it.
I saw a thing where it's like Americans making fun of Canada's healthcare system. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't hear you with the fact I'm crying over affordable insulin. I just thought that was
God
hilarious.
damn, Nick, you have dark humor. But no, like, Joe Biden was bitching about the price of insulin. He's like, it's $600 a month for a family with a child with type 2 diabetes that has insulin. And I'm like, you did that! There was a solution!
Yeah, all you had to do was re-sign.
Like, you just had to not fuck it! And instead, you grabbed the lube. No, you went in dry.
But
you went in dry and you did
it
right in the ass.
Stop.
Dude, Why am I not allowed to shit on Biden? Can I shit in Biden with...
talk about like that. Jesus.
Like sex? Okay.
No, hold on. Because it's back to the
Dude,
thing.
he totally fucked it.
The thing is that...
Nick, come on. Didn't he totally fuck it?
Don't bring me into this.
Look, everyone wants lower insulin prices. I bet that would fall in the 90s.
I'm just saying that we had lower insulin prices and he fucked it. He fucked it right in the ass.
But how is that relevant to this podcast topic?
Because we were talking about healthcare, and insulin's a very big thing in America.
Specific about
like, am I just no? I'm gonna shit on Biden. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, you just wanted to shit on Biden.
No,
like,
no, I'm
fine,
saying like
I get that, but
there was a solution on the books. There was a solution that was in effect, that was reducing the cost of insulin, and Biden was like, nah. And now he's gonna bitch about $600 a month.
I mean, he is trying to. Permanently lower the price of insulin.
Yeah, by his own thing, instead of just continuing with the thing that lowered insulin.
Well, in executive orders, I mean, isn't that what you were complaining about?
So why not continue the executive order and then be like, hey guys, we need to make this more permanent?
Because you would bitch about the executive order.
No, I wouldn't.
Not about that one. But
why would I bitch?
Because you hate executive orders.
You guys relax. I'm saying you need to get that done through the legislator, because I want it there.
That's fine. Let's continue it and then be like, hey, legislature, y'all need to pass something because I can't keep this going on forever. And keep going.
But the problem is exactly, and that's the problem we run into. So now I would like to hear, Nick, do you have any solutions on how we might fix this gap?
With the rigging and stuff?
Yeah.
Well, it can't happen.
Yeah. Well, I think Garrett had a good point earlier. Is that money being involved?
You gotta get the money out of politics, man.
Well, never happened. You gotta tell them they can't invest in stock market, which that'll never happen.
No more lobbies.
Nancy Pelosi laughed at that. You can't lobbying.
Hang on. I want to talk about something that Nick just said. Repeat what you just said about the stock market.
Oh, they asked Nancy Pelosi and she laughed, saying, "Of course they can invest."
That is fucking retarded. Coming from a Democrat, I expected less of you, but you lowered my expectations anyway.
Oh yeah. No, that's the thing. We don't have any party in the benefit of any working class Americans right now.
Honestly, if you have politicians that are able to invest in the stock market, you don't have a free market.
It's the definition of insider trading.
It is the Webster's dictionary.
Yeah, I agree. But that's the thing. Like Nick said, lobbying is as old as this country's been around.
Lobbying is literally what founded America.
Like, there's a reason John Hancock never needed to hold any political office. It's because he could just buy them off.
Right, and so, like, everybody's like, why do politicians make some money when they get out of office? It's because of book sales and interviews. No, it's because of the fucking stock market!
Yeah.
You made investments when you were a freshman that you knew were gonna pay off.
Yeah, I agree.
Fucking idiot.
But
politicians being rich should be
capital punishment.
But
you were supposed to be a public servant.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. The problem is that if you try and get any of this on the
Problem is
books-
Republicans don't agree with me on a large basis.
Well, for the most part, most of the Democrats would not like to see this bill passed.
But Nancy Pelosi.
You know,
Chuck
Joe
Schumer.
Manchin, you know, none of those guys want campaign finance.
What do you mean I
reform.
can't make money while I'm in office, you son of a bitch?
Exactly. None of these people want that because
What's it
it
called?
is their God-given right
Dude, that's
Oh,
to
you can
invest
fuck off.
in the stock market. And it is your God-given right to lobby and to donate to campaigns. And that's all fine and good.
I have come a long way on corporations are not individuals.
No, they're really not. Like literally,
No, I'm just saying, like, if you listen to our earlier podcast, corporations are not individuals. Unions aren't individuals. Like, I'm going to expand that out. I know y'all might disagree with that second one. But corporations, no. We should end lobbying in America.
Why do you hate freedom? Why are you gonna tell people what they can do with their money, Garrett?
I'm going to tell you you can't buy politicians with your fucking money.
Why not?
Why not?
Because that is an immoral use of your money.
Garrett, you can buy them with your vote. I'll buy them with my money.
I just happen to. You know what, Garrett? Have
You're really accentuating that homo part of our tree.
Hey, Garrett. How about this? We'll both lobby with money. I just can do it better because I have more money. Because I'm Microsoft.
Yeah, Garrett, you can donate money too. You know, you see.
I see what you're doing, but I agree with you. Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, you're beating me over the head with something I agree with you.
'Cause you
It's like,
do this.
here's the agreement stick.
Well, I'm saying
Whack.
like anytime.
Whack.
I don't know.
Anytime we bring this up, you go, why do you hate freedom?
No, I don't. I don't think I've ever... go back and listen to the other podcast, guys. Go back and listen to them. I don't think I've ever asked why you hate freedom.
Well, that's
No,
usually what
I
we
think that's
say
something
when being
that's
ironic
something
to
you guys attribute to me, like calling me fucking QAnon.
Oh, I forgot. Q. You gotta bring that in every podcast.
Q.
Even Teddy hates Q. Eating the spaghetti and Q's, aren't you?
Good God.
I eat only the Q's out of SpaghettiOs.
They're circles. So you had to make your
QAnon believes my shit! No.
Just because they look my way doesn't mean we're politically the same.
That's accurate. But no, I really do think that we need to get the money out of politics, and I understand that there's a lot of Republicans that don't agree with
That
me,
would at least-
especially Republican politicians. And like you said, there
Okay.
are Democrat
Mitch.
Republicans.
I would argue the majority of Democrats, as a matter of
Right,
fact.
because everyone likes fucking money.
Yeah.
Oh, Bernie.
This is, you know,
No,
there's
Bernie
a-
likes money too. Don't let him lie to you.
Well, I won't lie to you. The only guy writing campaign finance reform laws right now is like Bernie and like 6 other progressive Democrats.
Campaign finance law?
Yeah.
I would be interested to see that, actually.
Well, Bernie's is pretty simple. It's just, you know, no money from outside
You know
sources.
what? Credit to Bernie Sanders where it's due. He did fund like his 2016 campaign on grassroots funding for the most part.
Yeah. Well, his thing is like... so
When Hillary started to cheat him, he had to...
he understands that there's going to be no way to get like you can't end donations, period. So he was going to cap you per individual. So like it was
Per
gonna,
individual or per corporation?
per individual. Corporations aren't allowed to donate. In his idea.
Oh, that's... Okay. So I was about to say, in his world or in...
So his I can't remember how much it was, but his average donation for his 2016 campaign
It
was
was like
like
$50.
yeah, which is nothing. No, like Ted Cruz's is probably
Individuals.
close to like $500, which whenever you weigh out the 50 million you
That's-
probably got.
And I've actually talked to, again, that same Democrat buddy, and we have discussed campaign finance reform. It's like you've got to get rid of it. And I wholeheartedly agree. If that's what you guys are saying,
Right.
like, do we get rid of corporations? What size corporations? I'm honestly saying, like, if you got a small business with 10 employees, you can't donate to political parties.
Cool with that, yeah.
Like, and that's going to eliminate it. And you know, if we want to counter that, like, look, you know, that's not going to be enough money
Because,
to campaign.
look-
Then we counter that with like a $50,000 stipend to each political candidate, and it's got to be equal.
Yeah, no, I agree
Period.
with that. It's what's it
And-
called? Public
Funding.
Yeah.
And we'd also have to be like, look, CNN, you can't run their ads for a nickel on the minute, and then run Republican ads for $20 on the minute, you know? There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen, but we have to have some campaign finance reform. We can't have big tech buying our government. We can't have big corporations in general buying our government.
I'd agree.
Because that disenfranchises literally everyone.
The only problem we're going to run into
is unions.
And, no. Unions have far more power with their votes than with their money. Ask the only reason Joe Manchin's elected. Not because those people donated money, it's because they went out and voted for his ass.
Coal miners' unions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be the reason he probably loses. Because they ain't voting up again.
Well, it's honestly a Democrat being elected in West Virginia.
Yeah. Like his time was probably going to be short there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a 2-time governor there. So, I mean, they like him.
Ain't bad.
But, so the problem we're going to run into is that, and this is a problem throughout all politics, is that they may like the policy you advocate for, but they may not like the hand that feeds them. That's going to be the problem. The solution to campaign finance reform may come from a Democrat. People will shit on it because it is a Democrat. Just like people still found a way to shit on a Middle East deal from Israel and Trump. Because it was Trump.
Right.
And that's kind of going to be
on insulin.
The problem.
Because it's Trump.
Everyone's going to be like, that's a problem. You know? So it's going to be what we're going to run into. As far as other systemic things to do,
I really think if we could just get rid of the money in politics,
but, I mean,
we could solve so much of America's problems. And then we could get rid of gerrymandering.
Yeah, but even that's a system change.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. Like, there's something in the system has to change, or we're headed to a totalitarian.
Yeah. So I think it's like if you
Nick's over there flaring his nostrils. You got something to say?
Oh no, I was trying not to yawn.
Oh,
fair. Now, will this ever happen? More than likely not. I'm just a casual observer. I just figured it was my sovereign duty to, tell you guys that we're
in the fuck bucket.
We're screwed.
Anarchy.
Problem is, coming out of the other side, anarchy is never pretty.
Speak for yourself.
And anarchy is always ugly.
But yeah, we'll see. I don't know what will happen. I just figured I would just take this whole podcast to just basically tell everyone, like, hey, it's not the other side that's screwing us. It's the system that is screwing us.
I don't even think it's the system needs to be fixed in certain ways. Again, I'm not, and I know you don't seem to be advocating that we throw out the whole system. We just need certain changes.
Well, the problem is that,
what would you throw out?
We got to come up with a new way to elect the freaking president. We got to come up with a new way we're going to elect senators. Honestly, if I had my way, we would throw out the entire Senate. We would just have a House.
So purely popular vote Congress.
Preferably, but they would be elected every 2 years, so that way we could keep them with the will.
And you're hoping that counterbalances. So again, we're looking. Let's pretend we're looking at a 51-49.
Okay.
Right. Is it really just to have 51% push their opinions over 49? Without the 49 effectively having a voice?
Well, no, the 49 does have a voice, because you're confusing the elected representatives. That, in a functioning democracy, doesn't matter who the representatives are. It matters about the policy. So you can have 51% Democrats, and you can ideally still pass some Republican legislation. Because odds are, they ain't all Nancy Pelosi and AOC. Some of them are Joe Manchins. So they'll come over to the other side, just like some of you come over to the other side. And the only place we don't see this happen is in America. In other countries, literally every other democracy, we see people from the other side
across the aisle
vote on other things. In America, we don't really do that because you
toe the party line.
Exactly. Why? Because that gets you elected again.
Could we agree? Let's assume us three get to make the rules right now. Could we agree to end campaign finance reform? Like, not end it. I want no company with more than 25 employees to be able to donate $1. Okay? I also want, let's say, $1 million of government funds given to every candidate that decides to run. Actually, no, let's call it $10 million to each state for no matter who wants to run. Delegated by the Congress of that state.
But you're arguing for campaign finance reform.
I'm arguing that no longer do politicians at the federal level, or really the local level either, but concentrating on the federal level, no longer do politicians, including the president, get donor money. They get a stipend from
I would agree.
the federal government.
And the only reason I would agree is
it has to be equal.
Yeah.
And it has to be equally charged. If you are paying, and I mean, that would have to be included in legislation. Again, I'm not having, Fox News charge them 5 cents for a Republican and then $1 for a Democrat.
And the reason I would agree is because elections are supposed to be on policy, not about who has the most money. So that's what should determine who's president.
I would agree.
And when you get somebody...
Not just president, but congressman, too.
Yeah, I agree. So, yep. Campaign finance is not going to be the only solution that will fix that.
I mean, I'm just saying let's fix campaign finance first. Okay? That's all. If us three are in a room and we get to decide what we think is going to fix America, my proposition is let's fix campaign finance first. I would also like to fix term limits for Congress.
Term limits I'm less worried about. If we fix a lot of the other stuff, doesn't really matter how long you're in office.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
So if I fix, let's assume that one of my things on the table is the campaign finance reform. Numbers be what numbers be. What solutions do you what else do you have to add that you want to see besides that?
Well, it's got to be, one person, one vote. So the delegation of representatives has to be proportional. With respect to Montana, I don't even know if they have 1 million people. California might have close to 50. They should not have the same representation.
So you want an end to the Electoral College?
Yes.
Okay. Nick?
I like to see a change with the filibuster.
That's a good one I didn't even think about till just now. But that's a good one.
You mentioned it earlier in the...
No, but I'm saying in our solutions right here. In this conversation.
Okay, so we have a campaign campaign finance reform. We have an end to the Electoral College, and you want proportional voting, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, proportional voting I could probably get behind. Nick, you want an end to the filibuster?
I don't want to end. I want to reform it.
How do you want to reform it?
So, I think it's stupid that these people can just not show up to work, and that's counted as a filibuster. I think you need to stand up, and if you can debate, if you can talk for 5 hours, good on you.
So you want... we discussed in our filibuster podcast...
Yeah.
Go back and look at it. It doesn't have video, so you can't look at Nick's gorgeous face. Look at that goatee. Show it to him.
You can't even see it. I don't think they can.
I think they can.
Anyway.
He's got a beautiful black goatee. Anyway.
So I think, if you offer to filibuster, you have to get up and speak on why you're filibustering. And once you end, your vote is cast to end debate. Automatically. So if you can sit up there for 24 hours straight and just sit there and talk, maybe you'll convince the people, but...
Which, for the record, was the original
That was the original intention.
I have a question.
Okay.
Can congressmen vote by proxy?
So by just not being there?
Yes.
It would be
Or by
an
sending
filibuster.
sending
Right?
someone
No. I think you have to be present during...
Well, I'm fine. I'll be honest with you. I'm
because
fine
they gave
with
a
them.
telephone...
I am much more on board with your idea, considering the ideas here. I am much more on board with your idea if we no longer let people vote by proxy either.
That's fine. Like, I think you have to be... Because telephone's a heck of a game to play.
No. I want Congress people doing their fucking job.
Exactly. So I want you have to be there for when the bill is being read. I don't care if you got to read that whole bill. You want to make that bill 300-something pages, you're going to read that whole bill out, and then you're going to have debate. And there is no more, we're going to filibuster for 2 months. No. If you want to filibuster for 2 months, no one's leaving that room.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to leave that room until y'all reach a decision.
Nobody who wants to vote on it.
If you leave the room, your vote is cast to end debate.
I was fixing to say, because so they used to have a filibuster in the House, and they changed it after the Civil War because Reconstruction policy
wasn't passing.
They were just being obstructionist.
I'll make an exception to you can leave the room under emergencies.
Emergencies being the obvious.
But say you want to go to the bathroom. All right, you got 30 minutes, and when 30 minutes has elapsed, your vote is not.
Indiscriminate amount of time for bathroom breaks, lunch. You can have your lunch and dinners brought to you, but you do not leave. Like if you got to sleep, you got to sleep in that room.
Now, obviously, if a family emergency happens,
if your wife has breast cancer treatment, and for some reason that people want to shit on you for going to the breast cancer treatment and not doing your your news interviews, DeSantis.
What?
DeSantis.
Oh,
a whole bunch of Democrats were shitting on him for not being present for like a week, and it's like,
this isn't a partisan podcast. You got to quit doing that.
What? No, I was just saying, like a whole bunch of Democrats were shitting.
You, I do not care.
So DeSantis went to his cancer treatment with his wife, and a whole bunch of Smurfs decided to shit on him for not being present for 7 days.
I should tell you, I do not care in terms of this podcast.
In terms of this podcast, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, so emergencies being what emergencies are.
Yes. You have emergency, you're allowed, but you will be back within a reasonable time.
Honestly, if you have an emergency, why wouldn't you just change your vote?
You can give either.
Are we holding the entire debate for? Because Wyatt's right, they're going to exploit that. Like somebody's going to have. Yeah, fucking sunburn, a 3rd-degree sunburn that has to be treated. Like so if we're gonna
So your kid's soccer game is not an emergency. Your mother.
I'm saying no exceptions. Yeah, I think you got to play hardball.
No exceptions.
I would argue for you have to vote on every bill, too.
Yeah, I'd like to see you have to vote.
I'd like to see forcible
representative. You yourself are there to vote. And again, if you make a bill that's 3,000 pages, you're going to sit there and listen to all three. I don't care if you got audio.
I would entirely back that. I would entirely 100% back a reading of every single bill verbatim.
Yeah, I'm with that too.
And if you want to give people copies so that way they can read along with you, I'm for that.
Well, you can go find the bills online.
I would even back that every member of Congress has to be present when you read the bill.
That's what I'm saying. So there's because I think we all agree when the Democrats left Texas to filibuster,
that's bullshit.
Yeah, if we all don't show up to our jobs, a week, what happens?
We get fired, but you can't be fired for 2 years when you're.
Honestly, I don't even care if you want to go up there and read Green Eggs and Ham, which has been done before. If y'all didn't know,
yes,
I do. I understand that. I'm just saying. I would argue that you can't go up there and read Green Eggs and Ham.
No, it has to be relevant to the.
No, I don't even care if you can read Green Eggs and Ham all day. It's fine. You got what? Because most people are going to tap out after 12 hours. Max. Like, if it's like a die-hard issue.
Especially if you're not allowed out of that room.
But if they got to be in there for an extended period of time.
But then you got multiple people that are going to go up there and read. No. You were going to go up there, and the only words you were allowed to speak.
I'm telling you, I don't even care. As long as we just put...
I don't care if you got to put porta potties in that room.
So what do we got so far? Let's wrap this up, because I really got to piss. So we've got campaign finance reform. Campaign finance reform.
Well, categorize mine as like proportional voting.
Proportional voting.
And reform.
For representation.
And then the filibuster reform.
And filibuster reform. As in not getting rid of the filibuster.
Just reforming it back to what it was intended to do. Not,
Right.
I'm going to send some...
And that includes, like, and Wyatt, I'll give you a chance to go ahead and, like, explain yours, too. But I think Nick's is the only one that requires a whole lot of explanation. Like, filibuster reform, you're talking about, like it has to be in person. Is there a time limit on it? Is there...
So, as long as you want to filibuster for, but you're going to sit up there and you're going to talk about the bill.
It's got to be relevant.
It has to be relevant to the bill.
Okay, and does that include in-person voting, too?
Yes, every member of Congress has to be there to vote. And
With no exceptions.
No. The second you leave
And
that room...
I will concede to Wyatt.
The second you leave the room, your vote's cast in debate.
And I will concede to Wyatt personally, not you saying this for you, but I will concede that there are no exceptions.
I don't care if you got to put a porta potty in that room.
As far as mine, just a more proportional. That's the only way a republic is ever going to work, is if it's proportional. We don't really have that, so we'd probably do that for everything. Even for the presidency.
And we're talking percentages, right? So if there's like 40, let's say there's 45% of California is Republican and 55 is, so then the Electoral College votes.
Right, so the 55 of California, I guess 54 now, because I think they lost one. So they would get 55% of those votes, and the Republicans
and then people could still
that
vote
way
with
everyone's votes
actually
is counted towards their candidate, and we get a more accurate representation for at least the president. I could get on board with that if we want to do representatives and stuff too, but I'd say at least the president.
I would probably get on board with that with everybody. Like, I would be more inclined to get on that with everybody.
Top down.
Yep. Well, I think that's about it.
Mm-hmm. All right.
You got a closing words, what?
Well, it's rigged. It's not going to get better. It's it's going to get worse as we decline.
I don't have time to argue. I really gotta pee.
So everyone just enjoy the show and try not to get too upset. Try and watch it with a sense of humor or just a different perspective. So
remember, everybody, only once the government shackles are off are we truly free.
You're doing it on purpose now.
Anarchy. I'll see y'all next time.
This has been the Refined Peasants.